In the high-stakes world of the U.S. Army, you learn the value of a life pretty quickly. But you also learn about loyalty. When I was deployed in northern Iraq back in 2015, I didn't think my most loyal companion would be a starving, dusty, stray dog I pulled out of a bombed-out building in an ISIS-controlled sector. My name is Mike. I'm a veteran. And for the last 10 years, Lucy has been the pulse of my home. She's the only one who understands the nightmares I brought back with me. To the state of Virginia, she's just an animal asset. To my neighbor, she's a nuisance. But to my 3 kids, she's their sister. I'm sitting here in my kitchen in Strasburg, Virginia, looking at an empty dog bed and a $2,500 legal retainer on the table, wondering how a country I bled for can come onto my private property and kidnap a war survivor because a neighbor had a grudge and a Facebook account. If you think your home is your castle, think again, because in the state of Virginia, your neighbor's fear, even if it's fake, can be weaponized by a local government that doesn't care about your service records. This isn't just about a dog. This is about how a 2-year campaign of neighborhood hatred turned a war hero into a criminal in her own backyard. You have to understand where Lucy came from to understand why this hurts so much. In 2015, my unit was clearing a village outside of Mosul. It was hell on earth. Smoke, heat, and the constant smell of cordite. In the middle of a courtyard, I found this tiny, shivering ball of fur. She was terrified. She'd survived mortar fire and the kind of cruelty humans inflict on each other. I shared my MREs with her. I snuck her into my barracks. When my tour ended, I spent $6,000 of my own savings and navigated 6 months of international red tape to bring her home to America. I promised her she would never be afraid again. For years, she was perfect. We lived in a few different places, but 3 years ago, we decided to settle down. We bought a small farm in Strasburg, a beautiful rolling piece of land in the Shenandoah Valley. We wanted chickens, a big garden, and a place where our kids could run free with Lucy. But we didn't count on meeting the enforcer. That's what the neighborhood calls our neighbor, Silas. Silas is a man who retired early and decided his new full-time job was manager of the valley. He doesn't own a farm. He owns a manicured lawn that he measures with a ruler. He drives a pristine white SUV and spends his mornings standing at the end of his driveway with a pair of binoculars. The first week we moved in, Silas walked over. He didn't bring a pie. He brought a list of community expectations. "Hey, Mike," he said, tapping a clipboard. "Welcome to Strasburg. Listen, I noticed you have a large animal. What breed is that? Looks like a shepherd mix. They can be high-strung. We like it quiet here. The previous owners didn't have pets. Just wanted to make sure we're on the same page about noise ordinances." I looked at Lucy, who was literally sleeping in the sun, making no sound. "She's a veteran, Silas. She's quieter than my kids." He didn't smile. "Just keep her contained. I've lived here 30 years. I know the sheriff. We have a standard to maintain." Over the next 2 years, Silas turned our dream home into a psychological cage. It started small. He created a private Facebook group for the Strasburg Ridge Safety Committee. He invited everyone on the road except us. In that group, he started posting photos of our property. Suspicious activity at the Miller farm. It was my brother-in-law visiting. Loud barking heard at 2 p.m. It was a squirrel on a tree. He called animal control 6 times in 18 months. Each time, they'd show up, see Lucy wagging her tail in her fenced-in area, and apologize for wasting my time. But Silas didn't stop. He was building a case. He was waiting for one slip-up, one moment where the by-the-book Mike would have a human moment. In early 2026, the harassment got technical. Silas started citing Virginia Code 3.2-6540, which deals with dangerous and vicious dogs. See, in Virginia, you don't actually have to bite someone to be labeled dangerous. If a dog attacks or settles upon a person in a way that causes reasonable apprehension of death or serious individual injury, the state can intervene. Silas knew this. He wasn't looking for a bite, he was looking for a bark. He installed high-definition cameras on his fence line pointed directly into my yard. He'd stand near the property line and blow a high-frequency dog whistle just to get Lucy to stand up. I'd watch from the porch, my hands shaking. I knew what he was doing. He was trying to create hostile evidence. I spent $1,200 installing an underground electronic fence inside my wooden fence just to be double sure she never left the dirt. I had a trainer come out, another $800, who certified that Lucy was non-aggressive and had high impulse control. I thought I was being a meticulous engineer of my own safety. But Silas wasn't playing fair. He started calling the local sheriff's office about disturbing the peace because my chickens were making noise. He complained about the smell of the compost. He was trying to break our spirit so we'd sell the land. And then came the Tuesday that changed everything. It was a humid morning in early May. I was taking Lucy for her morning walk around the perimeter of our 5 acres. I had her on a standard nylon collar. A hawk circled overhead, the kind that makes a high-pitched screech. Lucy, who usually ignores everything, got spooked. She did a quick, powerful lunge toward the dry wash. I felt the snap before I saw it. The plastic buckle on her collar, the one I'd checked 100 times, just gave way. She didn't run away. She didn't attack. She just trotted about 20 feet ahead of me toward the property line. Coincidentally, or maybe not, Silas was right there. He was at the edge of his driveway getting his mail. He saw Lucy without a leash. Lucy did what any dog does when a stranger is near their home. She stopped, stood her ground on our side of the grass, and gave 2 loud, sharp barks. She didn't growl. She didn't bare her teeth. She just said, "Hey, I see you." Silas didn't run. He didn't look scared. In fact, he reached for his pocket, pulled out his phone, and started recording. "Get your beast back, Mike," he shouted, his voice calm, almost happy. "She's loose. She's threatening me. I'm in fear for my life." I tackled Lucy, literally. I threw my body over her and grabbed her by the scruff. I was gasping for air. "She didn't touch you, Silas. She's on my land." He said, "Doesn't matter. She's at large, and I have the video of her charging me." I walked Lucy back to the house, my heart hammering against my ribs. I checked her paws. She hadn't even crossed the invisible line of the electronic fence. She was 4 feet inside our property the entire time. I thought that was the end of it. A bad morning, a broken collar, and a neighbor being a jerk. I was wrong. 3 hours later, I was in the garage working on a tractor. My kids, 7-year-old Ben and 5-year-old Chloe, were in the backyard playing in the sandbox. Lucy was lying next to them, chewing on a rubber toy. 2 black SUVs pulled into my driveway. Not the sheriff, animal control, and a deputy. I walked out, wiping grease on a rag. "Good afternoon, officers. Something I can help you with?" The deputy looked at me, and I could tell he hated his job that day. "Mike, we have a warrant for the seizure of the animal known as Lucy. There's a formal complaint of a vicious attack and a violation of the dangerous dog ordinance." "An attack?" I felt the world blurry. "She barked. She was on my land. I have the collar right here. It broke." The witness provided video evidence of the dog being loose and charging his position, the animal control officer said.
He was a younger guy, stiff and robotic. Under the emergency provision, since the dog has a history of documented nuisance complaints, he meant Silas's fake reports, we have to take her into custody pending a hearing. You're taking her? Right now? Daddy? Chloe started crying. She ran over and grabbed Lucy around the neck. Don't take Lucy. She's a good girl. The deputy stepped forward. Sir, please, don't make this harder. We have a court order. I had to be the one. I had to be the guy who unhooked my crying 5-year-old daughter's arms from the dog she loved. I had to watch as a man in a uniform put a catch-pole around the neck of a dog who had survived ISIS, only to be treated like a monster in Virginia. They put her in a metal cage in the back of the SUV. Lucy didn't bark. She didn't struggle. She just looked at me through the grate with those amber eyes, the same eyes that looked at me in the ruins of Mosul. She was confused. She thought I was letting this happen. As they drove away, I looked over the fence. Silas was standing on his porch, sipping a glass of iced tea. He didn't wave. He just watched the dust settle. That was the moment I realized that being the good guy was over. Silas had used the law to kidnap my family member. Now, I was going to use the world to get her back.
That first night after they took Lucy was the quietest night I've ever experienced, and it was deafening. My kids wouldn't eat. Chloe just sat by the back door holding Lucy's favorite frayed tennis ball, waiting for a car that wasn't coming. I spent the night on the floor of my home office, surrounded by every scrap of paper I'd ever kept. My DD-214, Lucy's international transport papers, her vaccination records from Iraq, her training certificates. I felt like I was back in the service, planning a tactical operation, but this time the enemy wasn't an insurgent in a cave. It was a guy with a manicured lawn and a grudge. The next morning, I drove down to the Shenandoah Valley Animal Shelter. I wanted to see her. The woman behind the plexiglass didn't look like a villain. She looked like a tired bureaucrat who had seen too many abandoned litters. But when I gave her my address and Lucy's name, her expression hardened. She's in protective custody under a vicious dog hold, Mr. Miller, she said. No visitation. The county attorney has filed a petition for permanent seizure. Permanent? On what grounds? She didn't bite anyone. The petition cites Virginia Code 3.26540.1, she read from a screen. They're arguing that the animal poses an imminent threat and that you, as the owner, have failed to maintain control. There's a hearing in 10 days. Until then, she stays in the bite hold wing. I knew what that meant. No sunlight, no grass, just a concrete floor and the constant barking of 50 other stressed-out dogs. Lucy has noise sensitivity PTSD from her time in Mosul. To her, that shelter was a prison camp. Then she handed me a slip of paper. Impoundment fee, $45 a day. Legal processing fee, $250. Quarantine observation, $150. The cost of justice in a small town starts at $500 and goes up from there. I called a lawyer, a guy named Henderson, who specialized in animal law and veteran affairs. His retainer was $3,500 just to walk through the door. Mike, Henderson told me over the phone, this isn't just about a dog. Silas has been building a paper trail against you for 2 years. He has 6 documented calls to the sheriff. He has a recording of Lucy barking. In the eyes of a judge who doesn't know the difference between a shepherd and a wolf, you're the irresponsible veteran with a war dog. We have to flip the script. If Silas wanted to use the neighborhood against me, I decided to return the favor. I'm a private guy. I don't post my life on social media. But that night, I sat down and wrote. I didn't write a complaint. I wrote a story. I posted a photo of me and Lucy in a rack, both of us covered in sand, leaned against an up-armored Humvee. Then I posted a photo of Chloe crying in the driveway while the animal control officer took the dog away. I posted it to the Preserve Strasbourg Facebook group and the Nextdoor app. I didn't ask for money. I just asked, is this the America I fought for, where a dog who survived ISIS is kidnapped from a private yard because she barked at a neighbor who was recording her from the street? I didn't mention Silas by name, legal advice, but everyone in Strasbourg knew exactly who lived next to the Miller farm. The post exploded. Within 2 hours, it had 2,000 shares. By the next morning, it was on the front page of Stars and Stripes. I woke up to 500 notifications. People were furious. Other veterans in the area started tagging local news stations. People started digging into Silas's Strasbourg Ridge Safety Committee Facebook group. Someone leaked the group's chat logs. Turns out Silas had been asking neighbors to keep a log of every time the veteran leaves his house. The social pressure I'd seen in property disputes was nothing compared to the dog people of America. Silas had poked a hornet's nest of people who valued four-legged loyalty over human bureaucracy. While the internet was raging, Henderson and I were doing the real work. We hired a forensic video analyst, a guy who usually works on car accident insurance claims. We gave him the high-def footage from Silas's own security cameras, which we obtained through a subpoena ducis tacis, a legal give me your stuff order. Silas had claimed Lucy charged him. He claimed she crossed the property line and lunged at his throat. The analyst, a guy named Rick, ironically, spent 3 days on the footage. On Thursday, he called us into his office. "Look at the bottom of the frame," Rick said, pointing at a blurred line of grass. "That's your property line, Mike. See the electronic fence transmitter flags? Now watch Lucy." He slowed the video down to .25 speed. When the collar snapped, Lucy trotted toward the line, but at exactly 2.4 feet from the property boundary, she stopped. Her ears flicked. She barked twice. "Now look at Silas," Rick said. In the video, Silas was standing on his own driveway, but when Lucy barked, he didn't flinch, he didn't move back. Instead, he stepped toward the property line holding his phone out like a weapon, trying to bait her. He wasn't in fear, Henderson noted, scribbling on a legal pad. He was producing a movie. He was the director, the actor, and the cinematographer. But the biggest gotcha was something we hadn't even noticed. "Look at his hand," the analyst said, the one not holding the phone. Silas's left hand was in his pocket. Just before Lucy lunged toward the dry wash, Silas's thumb moved. Then he pulled a small black device halfway out of his pocket, a handheld high-frequency ultrasonic dog trainer. "He triggered her," I whispered. "Exactly," Henderson said. "He didn't just wait for an incident. He used an electronic device to spook a dog with combat-related noise sensitivity. In the state of Virginia, that's not defending yourself. That's animal cruelty and harassment." The day of the hearing, the Strasbourg courthouse was packed. There were men in VFW hats, local farmers, and news crews from D.C. Silas arrived in his white SUV, looking like he expected a standing ovation. He sat at the witness stand and gave a 20-minute performance that would have won an Oscar. He talked about the terrifying beast, the aggression of the owner, and how he no longer felt safe walking to his mailbox. The county attorney looked confident. They had the video, they had the report, they had the vicious dog box checked. Then Henderson stood up. He didn't yell, he didn't make a speech, he just asked for the lights to be dimmed. "Mr. Silas," Henderson said, "you claim you were in imminent fear of death or serious bodily injury, correct?" "Absolutely," Silas said, dabbing his eye with a handkerchief. "I thought she was going to rip my throat out." "Then why," Henderson asked, pointing at the 80-inch screen? Did you step closer to the beast while she was barking? Why did you never drop your phone? And most importantly, why did you have this in your pocket? He played the frame-by-second zoom-in of the ultrasonic device. The courtroom went dead silent. You could hear the hum of the air conditioner. Silas's face went from distressed victim to caught rat in exactly 3 seconds. I used that for my own protection, Silas stammered. You used it to trigger a service animal on private property. And, according to the GPS overlay from our surveyor, the same one who found the property pins, Lucy never left her owner's land, not by an inch. Then Henderson called me to the stand. He didn't ask about the incident. He asked about Mosul. He asked what the day I found Lucy did for me when the night tremors got too bad to handle. By the time I finished, there wasn't a dry eye in the room, except for the county attorney, who was busy whispering to his assistant and looking at the door. The judge didn't even go back to his chambers to deliberate. He leaned over the bench, looked Silas directly in the eye, and spoke in a voice that sounded like a rolling thunderstorm. This court finds no evidence of a vicious or dangerous animal, the judge said. In fact, I find evidence of a calculated, malicious campaign of harassment against a veteran and his family. Mr. Silas, you are lucky the defendant isn't filing criminal charges for animal cruelty today. As for the county, release the dog immediately. All fees are waived. The courtroom erupted. People were cheering. My wife was sobbing. But I wasn't cheering yet. I walked over to Silas before he could leave. He was trying to push past the news crews, looking small and pathetic. Silas, I said. He stopped, but he wouldn't look at me. The judge said I'm not filing charges today, I said quietly. But I have a $5,200 legal bill. I have 2 crying kids, and I have a recording of you admitting to triggering my dog. I'm going to give you 2 options. Option A, I file a civil suit for harassment and emotional distress that will cost you your retirement fund and that white SUV. Or option B, you sell your house, you move out of this valley, and you never speak to another veteran again. Silas looked at the cameras. He looked at the angry crowd of dog people outside. He knew his manager of the valley persona was dead. He was a pariah. I am listing the house on Monday, he muttered, and he practically ran to his car.
We didn't go home. We drove straight to the animal shelter. When they opened the cage, Lucy didn't run. She didn't bark. She just walked out slowly, her tail low, until she saw us. When she realized she was going home, she made this high-pitched whining sound, the same sound she made when I pulled her out of the rubble in Iraq. She jumped into the back of my truck, put her head on Ben's lap, and fell asleep before we even hit the main road. Silas kept his word. The for sale sign went up 3 days later. He sold it for $40,000 under market value because nobody in town wanted to be his neighbor. He moved to a high-rise in Florida where the only animals allowed are in purses. Our new neighbors are a couple of empty nesters from Ohio. They have a cat and a deep respect for fences. The first day they moved in, they brought over a bag of high-end dog treats and a handwritten note. We heard Lucy is a hero. We're honored to live next to her. Today, Lucy doesn't wear a nylon collar with a plastic buckle. She wears a heavy-duty tactical harness with a double-locking steel carabiner. Not because I'm afraid of her, but because I've learned that in this world, there are people like Silas. People who think that because they have a clipboard and a hustle, they can take what they want. They think boundaries are flexible and lives are disposable. But they forget that some things are worth fighting for. Some lines are written in blood, sand, and 10 years of loyalty. So I'm asking you, if someone tried to take your family member to settle a neighborhood grudge, would you have played by the rules?
Or would you have brought the world down on their head? Drop a comment below. I read every one of them. And remember, before you report your neighbor's nuisance, make sure you're not the one causing the noise. Because out here in the Shenandoah Valley, the view is finally clear. And Lucy, she's finally safe.